Now we can end with this part with the market trend that we expect for 2018-2019 campaign. Let me give the floor to Filippo Bertuzzi from Arete with this forecast.
Good morning, everyone. This is the last presentation of the morning, where we try to sum up the trend forecast and the price forecast, which is a tough topic. I'm starting with official published data. You will see that during the presentation we'll add some notice and figures from Arete, because May is a peculiar month for the durum wheat. We'll have to give our data in a more extended context. Some harvesting are just finished in some countries. We have seen that in Kazakhstan. We've seen the situation in Kazakhstan, in North Africa. These are the things we're looking at now. Then what is Arete doing? Arete is trying to give a context to what is happening in the different countries and to give figures and data. That means drivers for the determination of the prices. And since we had some interesting presentation, I want to discuss about important topics more in details. We have a first phase of the fundamentals, the most important points of the market, price forecasts and conclusions. What are the most important players of the market? Here we can see what is the structure of this market, and there's a structure that is repeating itself for about 10 years. We're saying again that on the one hand, most of the international durum wheat production is in North Africa, North America and Europe. But a big part of this percentage are characterized by importers countries, which are Africa and European Union. And we can see what are the most important exporters. This is due to an excess of production or production availability in the production countries and the lack of possibilities in the importer countries. You all know this, but it's worth to repeat it. These are official data for crop and yield. We are starting with Canada. The surface in Canada are increasing, while in the United States the surfaces are decreasing. The market is the same, but we have two different behaviors. Jan said that we can't crop durum wheat, but it depends on the alternatives. In the United States, they had alternatives. The spring wheat. In Canada, they didn't have the same situation. Some crops that were a good alternative until December, like legumes, have not been taken into consideration anymore. Then we have an increase in the crop in Canada. There are data like data statistics Canada, about 10-11%. We're talking about the AFC data. I want to say that for Canada and United States, the data are linked to the harvested crops. While in the European Union, we calculate cropped fields. There's a decrease of 5.5%. When we talk about yields, for the European Union, the forecast is stable. And we have a recovery for Canada and the United States. It's very important for those two countries. There's a decrease in the surface, but a great increase in the recovery. There was a drought last year in the United States. Canada wasn't influenced as much as the United States by the drought. We have an increase in the surfaces in Canada, an improving in qualities and yields in the United States, a decrease in the European Union as far as yields are concerned. And then we have North Africa, which has registered increases. Here. If we look at the figures of the presentation by Jan Witt, we talk about more than 1 million tons of last year's to an acceptable amount of 700 tons. Here the data talk about 100,000 tons more than last year. The data is more or less the same. We're talking about 3 areas of the 4 macro areas of the world. Now some details about Canada and the United States, since they are useful for the market analysis and the price forecast. We're starting from official data. We can analyze the exports, which are about 4.7 million in the next harvesting campaign. Then the use, that is substantially the same of the last year, and then there's an increase of the end stock. The red line is our data given by Arete. We're talking about the same thing, but in a broader amount of data. We don't think that will be the 4.5% that has been forecasted before. Then we can see this in the next harvesting campaign with an export perspective, perspectives that are lower than we expected. If we switch to the United States, there will be official data on the next harvesting campaign. So there are 2 Arete forecasts. Here we talk about the final, the stock ends, and there will be a decrease in the next campaign. Ian showed us an increase in the stocks, and here we're saying that there's an increase in the stocks, a total consumption, an increase in stock consumption. We discussed about that last night at dinner, so it was a pleasant context. If we talk about the United States, there was a decrease in the import. Well, as far as concerns the next year, there will be problems for farmers who will not be able to sell all of their products. So for them it will be compulsory to import. If we go more in details, and we take Canada and the United States into consideration together, but it's not important because what the United States import comes from Canada. So even in the scenario given by Jan, our total scenario that we can see here in the price forecast doesn't change. The price forecasts are for Arete linked to analyzing the most important drivers. That is, what are the stock ends in the two most important exporters, which are Canada and United States together, plus other variables like soft wheat, corn, etc. So we're just repeating what we have already said before. 2018-2019 will show more stock ends, slightly more than the official data. But in a market where the most important exporters, Canada and the United States, are saying that they are going to export more, and where among the most important importers, like North Africa and Europe, there are changes. The global market is getting heavier and heavier. What does this mean? What is happening in the other markets? Because since we're talking about low prices, it's important to see what other markets are doing. It's important to see it a couple of slides. This is the price for durum wheat in Italy, in Bologna. Here we have our ending campaign. Let's analyze more in details here. There are low levels, especially in July and August. There's been a drought in North America in that period. The concern that Canada could have a lack in the production, and the data react. Canada did not produce very bad last year. It survived the drought. Nevertheless, the market came back to softer prices. We see a decrease in the trend, a Canadian trend that went lower, a French forecast that had some problems in the quality of the product and was affected by a spread in quality. Another element to take into account that is rarity, because it's in the durum wheat, it's been in the durum wheat for a while, is this flat line that is very rare to see in this market because there is stability in our market. So a flat here is very uncommon. So what's happening for the other commodities? Durum wheat can survive with its supply demand that is not comparable to other commodities. But it still respects the context made by other commodities, according to a rule according to which durum wheat cannot be more expensive than corn. If this happens, the market can start to work in a different way. This line explains what is happening in Matif and in Bologna. We're under the spread, under an historical average calculated by from 2007 and today. The supply demand is telling us that there are heavier ending stock. That's peculiar of a market that should see a decrease in the prices. In the United States, there's a similar trend, and we are seeing the effects. As a consequence, the analysis tell us that the supply demand show a potential decrease in future, but on the other hand, other markets are supporting it. So we should remain on a scenario we're used to, in a scenario with a lower instability that could explode if driven by other cereals like corn and soft wheat. On the global market, there is a great quantity of other cereals. We've seen problems in the United States for winter wheat, and we're going to see what Russia will do in the future. So if you have any question, I think we have time for that. Thank you very much.